Right, hello and welcome. And in this tutorial video, we'll be looking at finding exploits and also fixing exploits. So you might be, having a scenario where you found a vulnerable web application and then you're trying to find an exploit that you might use. So I think this is a very good example of how an exploit which you find might not work and you have to somehow fix it to make it work for you. So I've got a web application here called Fleetco Maintenance Management System. And by default installation, the password is admin and the username, sorry, is admin. And then the password is admin, capital F, 123. So submitting to this web application, we could see just a basic web application to manage a fleet of vehicles. So, so you got some information logged in and all of that. Manually, you could try to exploit this application because in most cases when you find a web application and you want to test it for vulnerabilities, there are a couple of things you need to consider. One of the things I try to consider is it vulnerable to SQL injection, where you could get data from the database, query the database, get data from the database, and probably be able to log in or to the admin area in this instance and then take over the box. Or you could be thinking about why is it possible to upload an arbitrary file? So you can upload a file, especially for applications running PHP. You can upload a remote code execution file, execute the code or execute the malicious file, and get a shell on the box. Okay, so however, here I did a quick search. So I did Fleetco exploit DB and I found an exploit. And this exploit seems to be talking about the Fleetco Management System 1.2. If you have a look at the version we got here is 1.10. So this is probably an exploit that will work for a lower version of the same web application. Another way is if you use search exploit. So I could do search exploit and I do Fleetco. So I got no results for that. And the reason could be if you look at this exploit, it's probably published on the 3rd of December 2018, which is very recent according to the time I made this video. So you might update your Kali box and find this exploit is then being stored in the search exploit directory. If not, exploit database is a very good source for finding public available exploits. So let's try to use this exploit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a directory here. So I'll just call this Fleetco. And I'll cd into the directory. Right. So having a look at this exploit, it appears to be a Python exploit. And it's a remote command or remote code execution exploit. So one thing you need to look at when you're looking at public exploit is trying to understand what actually is happening within this code. So here we've got some imported files needed, and basically you've got the exploit is going to try to open the login page of the web application, prompts us for a username and password. Once that's supplied in, it then goes ahead to create a remote command execution file using most of the parameters here, and then goes ahead to use the Python request to upload this file to a directory. So accidents underscore add PHP, add the file, and then we get some information saying exploit successful. And then the exploit is validated. The file, which is an rce.php file, probably is just a command shell that allows us to, um, inject command using the URL. So basically, this is what this exploit is probably doing. So let's confirm how to get this working. So in order to download this, I think you right click on copy link, go on into here and do a wget, paste in the URL, and I should have the exploit. So list, that's the exploit there. So let's have a look at this exploit. So it appears to be the exploit that we downloaded. So in order to use this exploit, you can see it's got a usage executing the file and also the IP address, which is the remote host's IP address. So I'm just going to fire up this script and see what happens. Now I get an error saying syntax error, non-ASCII character, got this C3 hexadecimal character in the file on line 3. Now on line 3, so you ask yourself, where does this begin? So in Python, this is all comments because you got the hashtag in front of them, and it's the error here might be quite difficult to spot. So what I did in this instance was to say, right, I don't know what that error is about, but I could Google that error. So I just copied all of this. Go on to Google or on a search bar and paste that in. And the first thing I got was the Stack Overflow post, which talks about someone having a similar problem as well. So he had the problem as well. And, this is sometimes a very good resource to troubleshoot. So, about exploit has to do with you figuring out how you can troubleshoot and fix problems. So here, and this was ticked as, solved, add the following to the top of your file. And there's an explanation defining that the Python default ASCII standard is probably having issues with some of the comments you use in that file. So what I did here was to just copy these out, go back to the exploit, paste that at the top as requested, save the file, and execute it again. Now we get a different error. So he's saying the R host needs to be presented. So that's one problem solved. If you go back into this exploit, let's have a look at how the exploit actually would use the URL. So you can see here, the R host is the parameter being requested, and then that will be appended to login.php. So I could just give it the IP address, which is this IP address, 192.168.87.140. So I'll just copy that out. And also you can see we've got this 8080 as part of the port, which is where application is actually listening to. So if I supply this here, click on enter, oops. So that should be Python 140. It's complaining of an indentation error regarding here. So having a look at this exploit, the indentation error is in line 74, where you have request get HTTP. So go in here and try to look for the issue, which is here. So if you're very conversant with Python, whenever you have an if statement, you can see the next line here is indented. So we need to indent this URL, right? The print statement also needs to come here. So you have an if shell control.status equals 200, execute this command, URL equals this, print this, then the else statement is actually outside of the uh, if if command or the if loop. So going out of this if statement, and then we have an else. So that should probably solve that error. So I run this again, and you can see now the exploit is actually fixed. So let's type in the username. Password is admin F123. Now we get an issue. And the error here now is about an HTTP error 404. And that is probably consistent with the web application because it's listed on port 80. So what we could do here is go back to the exploit and try to fix this problem. So the first request after logging in is our host. So what we could do here is we do port 8080. If you go to the web application, we've got this directory called FleetCo. So we'll probably have to put that in as well. So /FleetCo. And any other place we've got that as well here in this URL. So we've got this, we could put 8080 /FleetCo in there. And finally here, we could do the same. So we have 8080 /FleetCo. And that appears to be it. So fingers crossed, this should solve the problem. So once again, we execute the exploit, ask for username, admin, password, admin F123, logging in, shell successfully uploaded but unable to upload or access the shell. So we're having problems. We'll try that one more time and see why. So admin, then we have admin F123, successful but unable to access the file. So let's probably log out from this web application. So we're having this. So let's see exactly why this could be an issue. So going back here, this appears to be the area where this is exploited, is uploaded, but here we get else print unable to exploit the shell. So it appears this is where the problem is. So you can see here as well, I needed to put in the 8080 /FleetCo into this shell. So the file got uploaded, but when it's making the call, it can't actually access the rc.php. So we save that again, and hopefully now the problem should be solved. So admin, click on enter, admin F123. Again, we're having a problem. Right, troubleshooting. And that's one of the things you have to do when you're actually trying to fix exploits. So you have 8080 here, FleetCo. So that's a typo error. So we try that one more time. And hopefully now we should have a shell. We should have a shell. Successfully uploaded, and we have our shell. So if we do an if config, our IP config, because it's a Windows machine, we can see now we have access to the box. Who am I? We could run who am I, and we are NT authority system. So basically, give you an idea of this, if we go onto where this web application is hosted, So XAMPP, etdocs, fleetco, and files, we can actually see the remote command file. If you try to open this, you could just see it's a PHP get request command, and that's all that's been uploaded. So technically, if we're able to navigate to this directory on the web application, a remote file could just be uploaded manually, and then from the URL, be able to execute those commands. So the author of the script probably has just written a Python script to do that automatically rather than do it manually. So this gives an idea of how to, fix exploits to make them work for you. It's about reading the file or the script and try to figuring out what exactly it's doing, changing some parameters, and trying to see how it could work for you. You could probably do more, or probably get a much more standard shell from this. So you could, you can make a call using PHP. No, sorry, PowerShell. Download a PowerShell script and execute it on the box, and probably get a proper shell than this. But I'm going to end this video here because I think the purpose has been achieved, and thank you for watching.